audio world is Michelle,
And Drew.
and we are the De La Vera family. And thank you so much for tuning in to The Hard Knot Life. Yes, we finally have a podcast name thanks to my genius husband here.
Woohoo!
I don't let him name children, but I let him name podcasts.
Oh.
Give it up for him. Give it up. But on today's episode, we have an interesting topic for some, not necessarily for us. It's our norm, but for everybody else, it may not be. And it is the age gap. So clearly, what we're talking about is age gap, considering our relationship, considering other people's romantic relationships. It can be a sore topic for some people, and for us, it's just our lives. Just to be very, very, very clear, I was 19 years old when I met him. He was
32.
See, he had to think about it. This is why. Let me give you all a backstory on this, right?
Oh,
So we
here
met
go.
on a online dating website. Not necessarily a dating website, it was a gaming website, but we met through an online format and started dating from there. And if you guys didn't listen to that previous episode, please go back and listen to how we met, the online dating. It's very interesting, kind of gives you guys an outlook on how we met, what we came to be as a couple. So this was back in 2008. And again, I was 19 years old. He was 32. I didn't know he was 32. There was an error on his part on the website because
Yeah.
you want to explain to people what had happened.
Yeah, I think on that website, which I think at the time was called My Yearbook, we were playing that matching game, and you're supposed to put your age in there, and I clicked on, I think I was supposed to click on whatever age group was past 30.
No, your actual age for your profile.
Oh,
Was
was that what it
wrong.
was? Okay,
Yeah.
okay. My actual age for my profile.
He was 2 years off.
I was 2 years off.
And we didn't know until we had been talking on the phone for like a couple of weeks, I think.
She has a better memory of these things than I do.
Yeah, so I guess just to give you a quick rundown, we were on the phone and I picked, it was very clear that I picked somebody between the ages of 25 and 30. He came up, I chose him, we talked, we started talking on the phone after we exchanged, a few messages online. And before we ever met, we were just making sure, we were very clear that we were already a good age difference, being over 10 years. And at this time, I thought he was 30. I was clearly 19. I had always been 19, unlike this one over here. And it came about that we would just kind of reevaluate it. Are you sure, you want to enter the relationship because you're so young? And, we were always kind of making sure, like, okay, this is what you want. We want monogamy. You want a relationship leading into marriage. We had those really deep discussions. And he said, with me being 32, and I was like, wait, what? What? Wait, you mean, you said what? Because he's a prankster, so I didn't quite believe him. I was like, he's just messing with me, right?
Yeah.
And
2 years was like a huge difference.
But it was a huge difference because it was just new information that I didn't already know. And he was taken aback by the fact that I didn't already know this. He was completely clueless that he had made an error.
That's how I knew I made a mistake. Because I was thinking that she knew I was 32. And I was just talking like she knew that.
And it's already a thing when you meet someone online that you're sharing as much as possible. And that kind of information was kind of basic because your profile says your age and, your name and whatever, where you're from, where you're living at the time. So I didn't really feel the need to dive deep into that. I didn't ask him what his birthday, what his year was, or his driver's license or anything like that. But nowadays you probably should. But I didn't. Yeah. We just had an organic chemistry. We really trusted each other. We came in with 100% and went down from there.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I was a little shocked only because I was like, that's new information. 2 years is definitely not a huge difference. It wasn't a big deal. It was just a new information. And so, we had to reevaluate what our relationship would look like or potentially if we wanted to continue, because he was always very adamant of being mindful of the fact that I was so young, even though, obviously I didn't carry myself as a teenager or a young adult. In that sense, I wasn't immature by any means. Otherwise, he would have not been interested.
That is true.
So, we did have the age gap with that, but all in all, it was divine intervention.
I was a very young 32-year-old.
He looks good. He look good. He fine. He fine. He just, so I give it to him on that. He's very good looking.
I didn't look 32, and I didn't act 32.
This is true, and I didn't act 19, but I did look very much 19. So just grown enough. Just grown enough. Had a little front, little back, just so you know I was a woman.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, so that's just our story about our age gap, how we came to be, and how we now had to venture into life with this in mind. So we're just kind of go over what age gap means, what that looks like, how our perspective is, and our dealings with our family, our friends, and just with each other maturing in a relationship. As you can probably already imagine, me being 19, being in college, first time leaving home from Texas, and being a young, soon-to-be woman, not quite, just a young adult, trying to navigating through life for the first time by myself. And then you have here, my lovely husband, who was already kind of established in life, knew what he wanted, and was ready to take the next, step in having a mature relationship that would lead into marriage, as did I. But our journeys would be very, very different. So just tell everybody kind of, did you ever expect to meet someone with our almost 14-year age difference?
I did not expect to meet anyone who was about 13 and a half
First of all,
years
you know what?
younger than me.
13 to 7 months, if you want to be exact. 13 to 7 months.
Yeah.
I don't know why he is so tripped up by the number 14. It's 5 months away from being 14 years in difference.
But it's not.
But
It's not.
But what is it that bothers you about saying that? Like, you're still not old enough to be my father.
Yeah, but there's a big difference between 13 and a half and 14. It's called what it is. It's not 14. It was almost 14, but not quite.
But what bothers you about 14? What if I was 14 years in difference? Then what? You ain't want me? What you trying to say? Huh? You would have to contemplate?
I would probably have thought about it a little
He a
bit
liar.
more if it
He
was
a whole
5
lie.
months more.
He a whole lie.
It was like that right before the border of considering if I should think about it or not.
So what would make you teeter on the border with that?
With what?
With the whole 5 month difference between being from 13 years and 7 months difference to a 14
It just
year
sounds
difference.
weird. 14 just sounds like a lot, and 13 just sounds better. It's a psychological thing.
Oh my gosh, it's just full of crap.
That's
Okay.
all it is.
Anyhow, so for me, I always expected to marry someone older. I was always into older dudes, not old dudes. Don't get me wrong, but I was always into dudes that were about 5 plus years, maybe 5 to 10 years older than me. So it really wasn't a shock for me, and I always expected to be with someone who was a little bit older, just because my level of maturity at the time, I did not find myself in likeness with guys that were my age, and that had always been the case since I was a teenager. First of all, to yourself, because I wasn't fast, but I did date guys who were a few years older, just a few. My big age difference before was let's see, I was 15, he was 22. Yeah, that was the biggest age difference. My mom knew about it, and he didn't live nowhere near me, so she was fine. She was like, they just on the phone, cupcaking. It ain't that serious. What was the biggest age difference for you before?
I think 10 years. Biggest.
Okay.
So, no biggie.
Oh, but the 14, that's just whew. The 14 is a whole exhale.
Well, it's just. I'm not saying I wouldn't have done it. I'm just saying maybe.
I know you would have. So that's
yeah,
why
I would have. I'm not lying.
You're
I saw
fronting.
this woman. She was so beautiful, man. I'm like, I don't care.
He was not counting months, y'all. He was not counting. He did not care.
Unless she's interested, she's interested in being a guy as old as me. Hey, I ain't saying no.
a whole lie.
I wasn't looking for a 19-year-old. Believe me, I was not looking for someone who was 19.
But I was still grown though.
She was grown.
I wasn't like,
I know, but I'm just saying, if you guys go back to the first episode, you hear how we first met. You see that she found me. She found me.
I Christopher Columbus. I discovered him.
She discovered me. And I wasn't looking for somebody that was 13 and a half years younger than me, or 14 or anything like that. I was trying to find a female. I was actually looking for a female that was kind of around in my age group.
So what stopped you though from having any committal relationships with the potential to marriage with people that were in their 30s or around there?
The main problem with women, I know I'm gonna be rattling some cages with this one and getting some, really hitting nerves with people, but this is my experience, all right? I ain't talking about anybody else's, and this is what I experienced. I'm not saying this is the way it is with
Just
every
say
woman
it.
in my age group.
Just say it.
Okay. You know how it is these days. Everyone gets offended with every little damn thing. But one of the main problems was with women in my age group was that women in my age group had already all sorts of battle scars from previous relationships, and they always bring that baggage to their relationship with me.
And just to add in there, baggage in the form of tiny humans. Is that what you're talking
Yes,
about?
there would be women with batteries included. So these women would have already maybe 1 kid, 3 kids, 5 kids, 3 baby daddies. Drama.
But for me, I don't think it's wrong to say that. I think it's, if you're clear about what you do and don't want, there's nothing wrong with saying, I get to have what I want. I get to have what I deserve. Because I know for me at 19, expecting to always date someone who was within 5 to 10 years older than me, I was very clear about, I don't want to be with no man who's ever been married to before or who had kids, because I wanted to have a even playing field with my potential husband. I wanted us to have those shared experiences together. I want us to have each other's first child, each other's first vows. That means something. And as young as I was in no position to be playing stepmom or second fiddle to anybody. And that's just what it is. So I don't think it's wrong to say, hey, if this is not for me and I don't want to be with somebody who has kids or a previous marriage because I want to have those shared experience for the first time together, then have that. And for those who absolutely step up to the plate and play stepdad, stepmom, who are figures in, and good role models in the parenting aspect when somebody who's not their child, salute, because I absolutely had that in my life and it was amazing to have people step up for me. But if you are not mature enough for that, and you can say, and be honest enough to say that, because I had to be honest enough with him and with anybody else that I wanted to date to say, I don't want that. I'm not ready for that. That's just too much for me. I deserve to have a husband that we share those experiences with. I didn't want anybody else to have that with my husband but me. And it's okay to be selfish in that way. So I don't think it's a problem. I don't think anybody should get offended. If you do, oh well, moving
Very
on.
much.
So,
and I just set the record straight. I don't think there's anything wrong with dating someone who has kids.
because you have.
Because I have done it. And I could say from experience that when you do that, it just I did it, and when my next relationship, like when I was looking for someone, which was my wife, I didn't want the person to have kids again, because I did date a woman or women with kids, and it in my experience, I'm just speaking for myself. In my experience, it just made things harder because you get attached to the kid, things don't work out, and it's just a bunch of heartache with it.
And it was and for me being very clear, I didn't want to have be with a man with kids, and he had a previous relationship that did have a child who did not know that he was not biologically connected to him. It was a beautiful thing to have been with somebody who stepped up in that way, but it also does create the problems. I got to see it firsthand. It was very messy. It's heartbreaking, and it's really hard to enter into a new relationship with those attachments. And now things are very, very different. Roles are established, boundaries are drawn, and I absolutely applaud him for stepping up the way he did. Because it was a really, really honorable thing to do. He did not have to, and still has that connection to this day. So kudos to those people who do, you know, find it in their heart to step up and do
Yes.
those things for other children that are not theirs. Or even if you're just an uncle or a cousin or a grandparent that steps up, just I absolutely applaud you because that is a very mature thing. And let me just say, I am not that mature. I knew I was never gonna be that chick at all at 19. No, that was not me. But do you believe that there is an age gap cap, and what is that for you?
Wow, an age gap cap. I think the
How old or how young is too young? And I want you to give me your perspective in the role as a male being older and as a female being older.
I think the cap. I think you shouldn't be old enough to be someone's parent.
So
That's
what is
my
that
own.
number for you? What is too old to like dang near be somebody's
Man, but
parent?
these days standards, boy, it could be 15 years, but these days standards.
Mm-hmm.
But normally speaking, even though you having some 15, 16 year olds having kids, and that's not even uncommon now. But like I'm an old school cat. I'm real old school, so I always have a mindset of back in the days when that wasn't normal for 15 and 16-year-olds to be having kids. So to me, like I think 20 years,
Mm-hmm.
um, between like 18 to 20 years might be too.
So does that
Uh,
make a difference for you
but
whether or
it
not
really,
the male is older or the female's older? Does that number still apply the same way? Because some people feel differently depending on the gender being older.
no, it doesn't matter. You know what? It really depends on the maturity of the man or the woman. Because, like I said, I am old school. I know my grandmother was married at 16, and 16 in her day and age was not a 16-year-old of today.
Yeah. Or 16-0 in this country. Your
Yeah, or
grandmother's
in
from a
this
different
country.
culture.
Well, my grandmother was from Puerto Rico, and then when she was 16, she was already considered a woman. She was already. She wasn't considered. She wasn't talking with her friends, going to the movies, going to the mall. She already had to do all had the responsibilities of a grown woman.
Mm-hmm.
So she was very mature for 16. She was considered a woman already. So, basically, I'm not saying that 16-year-olds should get married or anything like that, but
For today's standards, it's
for
just
today's
apply.
standards, but um,
So is that your number for males or females or both?
no, I'm still gonna stick with about that 18 to 20-year-old age range because I know.
Do you think it matters with a woman being older than a male?
No, I don't think it matters. I don't think it matters. If the person, I think that when you have a huge age difference like that, at least like 20 years, the one thing you got to worry about is that the person who's older is going to be aging way faster.
Yeah.
And you got to think to yourself, okay, when this person starts wrinkling, uh, and the wrinkles start accelerating.
You saw my wrinkles. You're such a visual creature. Just such a guy. Because my thing is, I worry about the other person at the end. I guess because I'm the younger person in a relationship, I automatically consider, is this person who's younger fully aware of what they're getting themselves into, what life will look like with you have a 20-year age gap? Because if you're, say, like us, and say I'm 19 and met you, and you were, say, almost, 29?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, no, not 29. I'm thinking
No.
about 39. I can't do math, so. So, that would be a thing where people would be like more considerate of me rather than you, making sure that I know what I'm getting myself into being so young.
Right.
Because you've lived life and you understand what it is. You know what you want. And people may think, that person's so young. The younger person has less maturity, less clarity on what it is they're getting themselves into, what to expect, if they can really do this in the long run. For me, the age gap for me, I think would be 15 years. I think 15 years for me is a cap for me. I don't think I want anything older than 15 for my children. I don't think that I wanted that for myself. I was already stuck between like 5 and 10. So really, the 13 didn't really bother me at all. But I think anything above 15 would have been a little bit more,
I can't argue with that.
a little bit more uneasy for me to kind of grasp a hold of.
15 is a pretty big difference.
So, and having met somebody at 32 who did not have previous children, who had never been married, was like a unicorn. It was like finding chupacabra. So,
Chupacabra?
no, not really.
What?
No, but
What? Chupacabra?
yo, but it
Finding
really
chupacabra?
chupacabra or the
You know
yeti.
what the chupacabra does?
I know. It's all the blood out of you.
That's what she's comparing me to. You hear this, right?
But I think that one thing that we were always clear about was what we wanted. You always checked in with me before we ever met in person. We talked on the phone for a month, and you were always mindful to make sure that I was comfortable. And
Yes.
if you ever find yourself in a situation where you're talking to someone who is the older person and they're not checking in to make sure you good, and not not daddying or momming you, but just making sure, hey, are you comfortable? Are you sure? Is this what you want? This is, talk about those things.
And I think I asked her that many times.
A lot of times.
A lot of times. I wanted to make sure. Like listen,
He was clearly not a predator.
yeah, I'm 32, you're 19, you sure about this? You know what I'm saying? Because I was sure.
Yeah.
I was like, 19-year-old's going to give me play.
You so stupid.
I ain't going to say no.
Yo, he was mad rude to me when I turned 20. Like, mad rude. Like, he hurt my
no.
feelings. He was joking, but he hurt my feelings
No.
on my 20th birthday. But, anywho, yeah, for me, 15 years. And after that, I'm good. And I don't think...
but tell them why. What is about you turning 20?
Oh my goodness! See, he couldn't let it go like that. He just made a joke about me turning 20. He said because he wasn't dating a teenager anymore. It was a dirty joke. It was a dirty, sick joke.
No.
Yes, it was.
It wasn't. Is that I had some friends of mine to be like, you with a 19-year-old? You got a 19-year-old girlfriend? How you do that?
Oh, so
How
he
you
was
do that?
enjoying that. Yeah.
And then they see what she looked like. You're like, and she look good too. How you get a 19? Like, I was getting mad respect. 32, and I got a 19-year-old
And I think I was
hottie.
unaware
That's the
of
way I
this.
looked at my wife. She was a hottie, and she's still a hottie. Back then, she was a hottie.
Jesus.
And then, like, man, you got yourself a 19-year-old girlfriend. I was getting mad love and like respect, and people like pat me on the back, like congratulate me. Like, how'd you pull that off? How do I do that? What's that name of that website?
And it's so funny because I don't think I was even fully aware of these things. He was probably having these interactions and like didn't even feel the need to tell me because I wouldn't think to ask or assume that he would have these, high fives on the backhand side.
That's what it was. I was getting high fives all
Yeah.
over the place.
And it's so funny because for a man, I think that is it to be expected. But for the opposite way around, when you have a young man and an older woman, I don't think that people would high five as quick. Maybe the girls would, yes. Maybe the same gender for the older person would. But I know as a mother having a little boy, I'd be like, what she want?
Yeah, well, I don't know.
I know you're across the playing field. It's the same thing for you, but for me, it's a little different.
If I was, sometimes I think about that. I was like, if I was a father, I had a 19-year-old daughter, well, what would I think? And,
With her dating a 39-year-old man?
I don't know about that one. I'm
Oh,
thinking
but you
about,
said 20 years though, and I asked you for both genders, so does it matter? So does it
I
matter?
did say that, didn't I?
You
But,
did. Take it back.
Yeah.
Backstroke.
Yeah, I mean, if she could deal with that.
Can you deal with that as a father?
I would have to know the dude, to be honest with you. I would have to know him. If I thought he was someone who was honorable, maybe. Maybe.
I think you're lying to yourself about the 20
I
year
don't
thing.
think I'm lying.
I think you're playing yourself with this 20 year
I
thing.
think in
Because that's old enough to be somebody's father.
That is.
It's very much old enough to be somebody's father.
That's true. That's true.
And you can't even say 14 to me. We ain't even. I said almost 14. You can't even take it. You can't even take it. You
I'll give you that.
okay? You know, it's double. It's double sided. It is. But for as far as our experiences of like telling people, what did your mom say to you? Did your mom know before I met her that I was 19?
I really don't remember. To be honest with you, I think I did tell her that. I don't think she thought nothing of it, because she, her current marriage anyway, she's like
She's the older
15
one.
years older.
Yeah.
So what was she gonna say anyway?
She didn't say nothing to you. She ain't say nothing to you because, you know, moms are real funny with their boys. Let me just say this: mom's real funny. I'm gonna be one that's gonna be real funny with my son's significant other. I'm definitely gonna try her the way I got tried because for him, you know, he's the boy, and men don't. One, they don't have intuition. They don't have, you know, those kind of things. They're just not built like that. But so she was real cute in front of him. But I remember when he would like leave the room or go outside, and she'd be like, "Oh, you're cute. You're young. How old are you again?" And little sly questions like that. I remember your mama asked me if I ate. His mama asked me if I ate.
This is the first time I'm hearing this.
He's lying.
This
This is the first time he's actually been in a room where he has no choice but to listen to it.
This is the first time I'm hearing
It's
this.
lying. But, you know, I think that there was definitely a few times where she's, you know, pushed up on me and kind of checked in with me and tried to play the kind of motherly role because she felt like I was so young that she was definitely in a position to do so. And she was called herself trying to look out for me because I was younger. So I think it definitely does matter. I think that your mom didn't necessarily say she had a problem with it or she had a problem with it, but she did probably have a concern over the stability of the relationship starting out.
She was trying to look out for you.
Okay, this is a mind game us women play. We do stuff like that, where we pretend like we're looking out for you, but really, that's your mama, and you her baby. So, I don't really think it was for me.
Well,
But, you know,
like I said, this is the first time I'm hearing about this one. So
He
I
lied.
ain't hearing about this.
he lied.
And she was making little sly comments about her age, how young she was, and saying, "What age you?"
Yeah,
I
or she
never
would
heard-
give me like those, you know, people give those backhanded compliments, be like,
How
"You're so
old are you
pretty.
again? I never heard that.
You're so pretty. Do you eat?"
She was very thin. She was very slender.
I was very slender. I was. But from as far as like, I remember telling my mom about you and how old you were, and she was not fazed. She was not shocked at all. She was very much expecting for me to be with somebody who was older.
I told my brother how old you were, and then he said, "You a cradle robber."
Your brother's like what, 2 years younger than you?
He's 2 years younger than me,
Yeah.
and he was just him hating. That's all. He would have been with
But
a
was he the only
19-year-old
person?
in 2 minutes if he could.
But was he the only person that ever gave you like pushback? Because I got zero pushback from anybody. My parents did not make
I
it a
ain't got
deal.
no pushback from nobody. I was like you said, I was getting high fives from people.
Oh my goodness.
No, we were like, "You the man."
And I think people will probably say like maybe more shocked reactions like he's how old? Oh wow. But nothing negative. I never got anything negative from my parents or from my friends. So what was the hardest challenge that you faced as it pertains to my age?
Wow, that's a good question.
You're safe. You can say it.
I guess the hardest challenge, and I think we talked about this at the time, was that maybe I would be more ready than you, to have kids, and be married maybe sooner than what you wanted.
We had the discussion when we were on the phone, and one thing that I was very clear about, which I think that anybody who's the younger person in a relationship should be very clear about, is the fact that I always told you, I want these things. I do. I want these things. I want
I
to
knew
be
she
married.
wanted them, but I don't know if
I knew I wanted kids, but I also told him I am not going to rush my life for you.
that's
I
what
want
it was.
these things organically when I'm ready, and I made that very clear. But I do think that it was hard for you when it came time to when we were married for a few years and we were getting near those steps, and I was like, I'm not ready yet, and that was a little hard for you.
It was. I think she was ready to be married. I think
Absolutely.
what some of the, I think I was more ready than her though to have a kid
Yeah.
because I was already. Um, by the time we got married, I was already 35.
No, you were 34, babe.
34.
Yeah.
Okay, that was close.
We
So I was
married after
30.
2 years of
I was
dating.
34. So 34-year-old man. Yeah, I'm ready to have a kid already. She's still in her early 20s. She's not ready.
I was 21 when we got married,
Right.
and one thing for me is I didn't grow up with this idea of like I'm gonna be married at this age and I'm gonna have kids at this age. So numbers didn't really matter to me in that sense. Maturity and growth did. So me being married at 21 wasn't a huge deal for my family and for me because they knew who I was. They knew my level of maturity. He did as well. We spiritually counseled. We did not have any pushback at all. Um, and for me, I never had this timeline of like I have to go by this. And for him, I think it was completely opposite because we would have conversations, and you were like, at 32, you were like, man, I thought I would have been married and had kids by now.
That's true. If you would have asked me in my early 20s, I would have thought by 32 I would have been married and maybe had my first kid by then or starting to have a kid by then. But
Yeah.
sometimes life, it don't turn out the way you expect, and things just go a different route. You just gotta roll with it.
And thank God it did.
Thank
So
God it did. I met my wife. I wouldn't have met my wife if I did.
yeah, and we have a beautiful little boy now that we're raising, and we
And
did
he
it
was
on
worth the wait, believe me.
yeah, and it was on both of our terms because even though I wasn't as ready as he was, when I was ready, it was so much more enjoyable, and that's the part that I was waiting for. I was like, I'm waiting for this feeling, and I couldn't explain to him as a woman what that is to feel like, oh, I have a natural yearning. Because one thing that I decided that I was going to do from a young age, based on how I grew up in a single parent home, and I just said, my children are going to be wanted. When I bring children into this world, they're going to be desired, and not by one parent, not by one or the other, just both of them. And so I was waiting to get that feeling of desire, like, yes, I'm ready. And of course, we were just doing other things, financially planning, switching careers. We moved, from Florida to Texas, getting reestablished here. So all those things came into factor. So let me answer that in return. For me, the hardest challenge that I faced in regards to the age gap was you allowing me to make mistakes that 19-year-olds, 20-year-olds, 21-year-olds make in life.
Yeah.
And that was really hard for him because he had been there, done that. And as much as he was trying to, invoke wisdom on me and let me know, hey, this is not going to work, I was like, let me make my mistakes. This is my
I wasn't
life.
trying to hear y'all.
I was not trying to hear it. And I was like, a ounce of experience is more than a pint of advice. So goodbye, sir. And, things financially, things work wise, and just relationship wise as well. And I was like, that's not fair for me to not have a natural learning experience with that just because you're older. And I get you're trying to look out for me. So that was the hardest thing for me, was just reminding him, like, I'm not rushing my life for you. I'm not rushing my experiences for you. I get that you know better, but I don't. So let me live it. And that was the main thing for me. So do you think that age gap makes a relationship easier or harder?
I think it makes it a bit harder. I ain't gonna lie. It's a bit harder because when you do have age gap, like she was just saying, she might be going through something you already been through. Like, hey, I already played this game and went down this road. I know how this is gonna turn out, or I know which way this leads. And sometimes people just gotta experience things for themselves. And
How hard was that for you though, to stand by and like watch me make mistakes?
it was very hard. It was very hard. I'm like, woman, listen to me. You know what I'm saying? So I know, I know I have all these life experiences, and I kind of know how these things might turn out. Of course, you can't be totally psychic and know, exactly how everything will turn out, but you have a pretty good idea. If you do this, this will happen.
Yeah. And
You
for
know.
me, and just to set up the scene, I was in Florida. I had no family in South Florida. And so when we got in a relationship, he was my family. He looked out for me in so many other ways. And so for him, I can imagine that was difficult. Um, but I'm like, if I left my family over in Texas to come do me, what makes you think that I'm going to not do me just because you're not my family? And that was my perspective. So yeah, I think there definitely are challenges. I think as long as you're constantly checking with each other and making sure, hey, are you
Yeah,
comfortable? Are we still on the same page? If we're
because
not on the same page, how do we get there?
yeah, because when you have an age gap like that, because I'm in every decade that I go through. Like, I'm in my 40s now. I'm a different man in my 40s than I was in my 30s. And when I was in my 30s, I'm a different man in my 30s than I was in my 20s. So you grow and you evolve into a different person.
Yeah,
And you should be growing and evolving into a much more wiser and a better person you were than the previous decade.
yeah. And really, in retrospect to that, I've gone through three different eras of my life with him. He's only gone through his 30s and 40s, but I went from being a teenager to being in my 20s and now in my 30s. Um, and so you can imagine that might be a lot for him to have gone through these steps with me. On top of that, I think there was a bit of insecurity um, of whether or not I would always want this. Can you?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that was always like a fear of mine that maybe um, that she would maybe regret getting married so early and maybe not going out and experiencing life more as a single woman, or maybe you know going and experiencing different relationships with people. So that was always like a concern and a fear of mine of being with someone who was more than a decade younger than me.
And being in South Florida and being in Miami, there is room and space and opportunity to go buck wild if you want to. I did not come there for that. I went there to go to school. But he definitely allowed me my space to enjoy being a young adult. And you had that fun with me. And then when you didn't feel like it and you were like, look, I'm really feeling like I'm in my 30s right now and I want to be home, you were
Hmm.
like, go have fun. You let me go do that. You let me go be out with my friends and with our coworkers. And so he allowed me that space to really go through those phases, um, and always made sure that I was okay at the end of it. So yeah. Um, what was the climate like for the decade that you grew up in, just to give people perspective of like our differences with the era?
Well, since I'm in my 40s,
He was born in the 70s.
I was born in the mid 70s,
Hmm.
and I always consider the decade you grew up in to be the decade of your teen years.
And I know I disagree all the time. So
I
just
think most people would agree with that.
okay,
So,
whatever.
with that said, I grew up, my teen years were in the 90s. So, what was the question?
The question was, what was the climate like for the decade that you grew up in? What was it like?
Okay.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know where I was going with that.
Him's
But
tired.
it's tired. It's pretty late at night when we're recording this. Because we got to do this when the sun is asleep.
Yeah.
But the 90s were,
The best ever.
yeah, I can't lie.
The best ever.
The 90s were awesome, man. What can I tell you? Nothing will ever beat the 90s. But
But what was it like the political social climate for you being a teen in the 90s? What was that like for you?
my, being the political and social climate, I mean, it was just chill being in a teen in the 90s.
I feel like the 90s was very
I
progressive.
grew up, my teen years were in the golden age of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? So, and I still, there's a lot of things that carry over from that decade that I still, a lot of things from the culture of the 90s that still carry with me today.
I think the 90s, were very progressive, innovative, and accepting. So we were coming into technology, we were coming into different genres of music blending, we were coming into the visual aesthetics of entertainment. Was in their prime because you had like animation was like really at its prime in the 90s, really coming out. You had Pixar, Disney, all these things that were making like amazing progress in film. And culturally, things were a little bit more vulnerable. I think that we've kindly progressed to that now in 2020. Everybody's more open, but then I think it was the start of it, the embarkment of being
She knows
open.
more about me. She was a little kid in the 90s.
First of all, I claim to have grown up in the 90s. He don't
She
agree.
didn't grow up in the
My
90s.
adolescence was in the
She did not
90s.
grow up in
I
the
was
90s.
born in 89. So technically, don't, oh my God, me. Technically, I was born in the 80s. Don't play me. And
So technically, you were watching Barney in the 90s?
I sure was. Wasn't nothing wrong with Barney. Barney and Baby Bop was all that. And
I
Zaboomafoo.
love you, you love me. Let's all get together and beat Barney.
Don't sing that song. You're horrible. You're so horrible. You know, that and Gullah Gullah Island and all that. That was everything. You know, Nick Jr., I loved it. I love the 90s. For me,
Gullah Island.
Gullah Gullah Island was the stuff. That was like the first black people we saw on Nickelodeon, like really doing their thing, jamming, teaching.
Nickelodeon.
Oh my gosh. Anywho, you know, for me, you know, the climate growing up was always like, I didn't see my economic situation. I didn't see color. It wasn't an obvious thing for me. You know, even growing up in a single parent household, I never felt without. My mom had a good job. And I was probably in that generation, which I am a millennial, technically. Technically, I'm the very end of millennial because I think a millennial starts in what, 80, is it 87,
No, I think
88?
I think you just barely by the skin of your teeth.
Barely made it.
No, not millennial.
Yes,
Generation
it
X.
is. You know what? That's to be termed. I am a millennial. I did check it.
No,
It's like 35. It's up to 35 now.
I've read different things, like what was considered Generation X and what might be
The cap on millennial is like, I think 30.
So
whoever's
I
35
don't
now.
know. And she might be right on the border between both of them, between
Anywho,
millennial and Generation X.
I thought that, you know, the 90s was the stuff. I felt like that was the era I grew up in the early 2000s, of course. You know, had my teen years in the early 2000s.
That is your decade.
Mind your business. First of all, I'm answering the question. It's my perspective. So, you know, it's when like boy bands were the stuff, you know. So I got to be like a little teeny bop all the time with the Backstreet Boys and the B2Ks and all that stuff, you know. I got to really enjoy being a lady growing up during that time because I feel like we had like the bomb stuff going on in music. So yeah, that's how it was for me. So when I graduated from high school in like 2007, going into college in 2008, yeah, it was definitely, I was a shy introvert person, but I was ready to take on the world and reinvent myself and, you know, do things I had never done before. So if we switched ages, would we still be together? If I was the 32-year-old and you were the 19-year-old, how would that look?
Yeah.
How would that look?
Yeah, if I was 19 and I saw, you know, 32-year-old that was hot as you, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Men are built that way. They really are. They don't care. They just want some coochie.
Yeah. Come on now.
They just want some.
Hey, come on now. No. That wouldn't have been it. That wouldn't have been it. I wouldn't just be like, oh, I want some 32-year-old coochie.
I'm just saying.
If you would have just had your personality and everything, I think I still would have. Look, listen, when I was 19, I tell you right now, I would have gotten with a 32-year-old.
I don't know.
If they would have given me the time of day,
I
I
don't
would have
think I
gotten
have
with
a good enough perspective of what you would be at 19 to be like, I would still like you. Because I probably wouldn't.
She probably wouldn't like me
I
at
probably
19.
wouldn't.
No.
So, if
But
your
if
child,
a
though.
32-year-old wanted to be with me 19,
Oh
I
my
would have definitely got with that.
gosh.
I would have got with that fine wine.
You see how quickly that went from me at 32 to anybody at 32, he would have totally done it. So, what if our child brought somebody home that was significantly older or younger? How would you react?
You know, it depends how much older.
Say with our age gap.
I wouldn't have a problem with it.
What about 20 years?
I would have some reservations about it.
Mm-hmm.
I think I kind of contradicted myself in this age this podcast because I think I said before that I thought the age gap was 20 years is too much, but then I think at the same
No,
time
you
I
said
said
20 years was fine, and I was like, that's
yeah, 20 years was fine. I
yeah,
said no, I said that you shouldn't be old enough to be the person's
father or
father,
parent.
and
Yeah,
20 years old I think is old enough to be
yeah,
the person's
absolutely.
parent.
I
So
told you that in the beginning. You played yourself.
yeah, so I think I'm having a brain fart here. Um, so yeah, I probably agree with my wife that 15 years is probably, in my opinion, in our opinion, probably the max.
So, what advice would you give our son? Say he would bring somebody home that was significantly younger or older.
My advice to him would be to, uh, if he brought someone way, if it was 20 years older, I would tell him to, seriously reconsider that. That's a bit much. Because that's a whole 2 decades, that's a whole generation gap.
Yeah.
And sometimes you let your emotions get in the way of you let the heart get in the way, lead you instead of your brain, which sometimes tells you what the common sense thing is to do.
And also with boys, when you have a younger male who dates an older woman, the first thing that people think or have concerns with, at least for me, is fertility. Do you want kids? And if you want kids,
Yeah.
then how difficult is that going to be? Are you with somebody
I
who's going to be able to facilitate those things for you? How hard that would be in life versus being with somebody who's younger, or not necessarily doesn't mean that younger is capable, because it could look like that for any woman. But of course, with having a age gap with a younger male, of course, that would be the first thing that comes to mind for me.
Yeah, because I know when I was younger, I had a chance to be with, I don't know if I ever told you this or brought it up. I might have, maybe I don't remember.
No, I don't remember.
I had a chance to be with an older woman who I think had like 3 kids.
Oh,
four.
you did tell me about
I
this.
did tell you about that. Okay, yeah. Had a chance to be with a woman that had 3 kids, 4 kids, something like that. She had a lot of kids, but a lot of batteries. But
Calling children batteries.
batteries were used. But
Oh my gosh, I'm talking about people like that. They're whole human. That's a whole human.
I don't know. No, they were good kids. They were good kids. I don't know. But anyway, I had a chance to be with a woman that was older than me. I think she was like, I don't think it was 20 years older, but it was a lot older. It was maybe 17, 16, something like that. And I think to this day, I know there was a strong urge to commit to her and try to make something happen with her. But when I look back at it today, I would have made a mistake being with that woman.
Mm.
I would have made a huge mistake being with her. She already had a kid. She was done having her kids. She was gonna have no more kids with me. And I know I was thinking in my head, that maybe I, you know, possibly loved her or wanted to be with her enough to make that sacrifice and not have no kids. But when I look at my son, I tell myself, that I would have made a huge mistake if I would have gotten with that woman. You know what I'm saying? That would have been me just acting in my emotions. And I'm glad at the end I used my head and thought it through and had patience and waited out. Because sometimes you think you met the person. Sometimes when you get all hung up and caught up on the person, you deny yourself a chance to meet someone who could be better in the future.
Yeah. Sometimes you cap out really quick just because somebody meets your expectations, not knowing that somebody else could blow it out the water.
Exactly.
And yeah, I definitely feel that. And also for me, I think that would tell my son the same thing that I went through my head, that you would also looked out for me in that sense, was let's just talk about the hard stuff. Like, what does your timeline look like? Like, do you really want this? Be clear about, you want kids, do you want marriage? How are you going to make this work in the long run? And be able to be mature enough to have these conversations, because I really think you have no business entering into anybody's life with an age gap without wanting something in the long run. I think that you're fooling yourself into thinking that you could bring somebody home that has age gap and say, I don't really know what I want from them. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. And you need to be very clear about that with at least that person. If not anybody else, that person needs to know what you want out of this and weigh these things out. Because as much as I was feeling my husband at the time when we were talking online and on the phone, we did not solidify our relationship until we met. But we always made sure that these things were mutual wants, that we were very clear about our individual desires and our requirements. So this next question, I know you're a little fuzzy right here.
Why
Yeah,
she
he just
laughing?
got it. Because people will probably want to know, like, does age gap affect your love life, your bedroom?
Not for me.
And not for me.
Uh,
It's a compliment. It's a
well, there
compliment.
you go.
You know, I had no business having sex with you before we got married, but I did. And
Yeah,
we didn't have no business doing it, but we did.
We didn't have no
and
business
I
doing
liked it. I did. I liked it a little bit too much.
I liked it a lot.
Yeah. And no, it definitely, I didn't really have any expectations on whether or not what it would be like, or if it would be lackluster, or I don't know. Some people may think that the older guy is probably impotent or not as, I'm not saying you, calm down. But some people may think that an older gentleman, it's not shots fired. I'm not talking about you. But some people may think that if some other immature 19-year-old girl said to another 30-something-year-old man and was like, you know, they probably would question it, like, you need a pill or something, you know, because the perception is there. Maybe. I'm just saying, it wasn't me. It wasn't me. But obviously we didn't have that issue. And I think for you, it's just weird now because I've gone through my phases with, you know, bedroom, being a young, vibrant woman, and then like going through my phases, and, you know, I've changed, and he's gone through 3 phases with me, being a teenager, being in my 20s, and now in my 30s, and being a mother, and things have changed. But the desire to be intimate in that way it's acted out differently. Things look different for us as parents. But as far as in the beginning, 1932, nah, we were both 19 and laying down.
Right, that's the truth.
We were both 19 on the horizontal side. So, you know, that's probably TMI. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm sorry. Do you think that you will outlive me? Because we have this debate all the time.
We do be having this debate.
We be debating on who's
And I
going
be
to die
telling
first.
her vegan diet is gonna kill her before me.
He's been telling me that the microwave is going to kill me since we
because she
met.
be microwaving her food all the time, nuking it.
I lived in a dorm,
And
first
so
of all.
she's eating all this radiated food that might make
Now,
her
mind
grow
you, don't
third
try
eye
to play
one
my
day.
cooking skills because I can cook. I
Oh,
just
she can
reheat
cook.
things.
She can cook.
I just don't reheat things on the stove.
Like, I'm not gonna lie, I use the microwave sometimes. I try not to use it.
He woke now.
Yeah, I try not to. I'm not saying that there's scientific proof that you get cancer from a microwave or something like
But
that.
he will send you an article if you want to know.
But, you know, it's like, why take the chance? Don't be lazy. You know, like I said, I'm old school. I'm in my 40s. So I didn't get my first microwave until I was in my 20s. So when I was a teenager and I was a kid, you wanted your food heated up, you threw it on the damn stove.
You be sounding like a low-key fossil sometimes. You be sounding like
And
a
like,
fossil.
don't be a lazy ass. Take your food and throw it on the stove
Oh my goodness.
and heat it up. It's healthier. You don't have to worry. If the microwave is bad for you, you don't have to worry about it. You heat it up on
But
the freaking
sometimes
stove.
your food be already cooked, and then you don't want to cook your food, because that's me. I don't want to cook my food.
So that's one of the reasons why I say I'll outlive her. 'Cause
I'm definitely gonna outlive
she
him.
used the microwave
let
way
me
more
explain
than
something to y'all. Me and Jesus already had a conversation about what we was gonna do, because first of all, if y'all haven't noticed, him's a whole clown over here. Sometimes he a whole fool. So we be having discussions, me and Jesus, and I'd be like, you know what? If you're gonna leave somebody with my child, don't leave him with him. Just take him
wow.
first. Just take him first. It's okay. You love him like that, and you love my child like that, and you love me. Just do the right thing and just take him first. Jesus got a whole doggy bed right next to the throne for you. It's gold. He got a golden leash. He makes sure he can keep an eye on you. You can't go too far.
You hear this evil blasphemous talk that's going on right here?
We have an arrangement. I ain't going nowhere first. He loved you that much. He wants you near him. That's all it is.
You kidding me? Me and my son, we be living the bachelor life.
First of all, don't even do me like that. Don't even do me like that. Because first of all, that's a whole different conversation. That's a whole different podcast. Because I know he would move on if I died. He would move on.
No. No.
We're just kidding, y'all. We're just kidding. So now that we've experienced this life with dating, with an age gap, being married and having children with an age gap, would you recommend it for someone else?
You know, I'd recommend it. I wouldn't not recommend it.
Do you have a specific like gap or
I would just tell somebody that you date someone who's going to be older or younger than you. It just might be a little more extra work to make that relationship work. Because like I said, because you're going to be dealing with an evolving person, especially if they're younger.
He act like he wasn't a whole work. He have a whole part-time job, a whole full-time job. I didn't get paid. I didn't get no certificate of completion. I didn't get a Nobel Peace Prize. None of that. So don't let him sit here trying to play nobody like I was a whole piece of work. He a piece of work too.
It ain't the same because she was the younger one, so she was the one who was still evolving.
I was spicy. I was.
I had to deal with like her evolving like 3 times. She only had to maybe deal with me evolving once because from my 30s to my 40s I evolved because I'm a different person, different man than I was now than I was in my 30s. I said I had to see her evolve from a teenager to a woman in her 20s, and then from a woman in her 20s to a woman in her 30s that she is right now.
And first of all, it was not twice that I had to see you evolve because I had to see you evolve from being a boyfriend to being a husband, and that was a whole transition. And
I
then
thought about age evolving.
No, since we're there, because you're trying to play me. So your boyfriend to a husband to a father, and those are all huge transitions, and we all experienced those transitions together. We both did. So we both experienced the same in that retrospect, which is why this is why it is fair to say if you you don't want to be with somebody who don't have kids, who's never been married before, all those things, then do that. Because we got to experience those things together despite our age difference. We both entered marriage for the first time together, and we both had children, for the first time together, and those were the things that was really, really important. So, do you agree? How you feel about that?
I agree with everything you said.
But don't try to play me ever again in your life. Don't do it.
She got a knife to my throat right now.
No, I don't. Anywho, well, we appreciate y'all tuning in. We know this is a long one. Thank you so much for tuning into the Hard Knot Life. Again, I am Michelle.
I'm Drew.
And we got the De La Vera family. Bye.
Y'all come back now, you hear?
Don't do that. That's not how I sound.